Karen Whitfield stood frozen in the driveway of 42 Lakeview Terrace, her hand clasped over her mouth as the realtor's lockbox clattered to the ground. The vacation property's front door hung wide open, revealing a stranger lounging on the living room sofa, feet propped on the antique coffee table, scrolling through his phone. "Excuse me." Karen's voice cracked like a whip across the pristine lawn. "What do you think you're doing in my house?" The man, mid-30s, with a scruffy beard and cargo shorts, looked up with mild annoyance. "Your house? Lady, I just paid $3,000 for this place. Monthly. That's impossible." Karen marched up the flagstone path, her sensible heels clicking with military precision. As president of the Lakeview Homeowners Association, she'd spent the past 3 years enforcing every bylaw with religious fervor. She knew every property's status within these hallowed gates. "I manage this property for the Hendersons. They're in Europe until September." "Never heard of any Hendersons." The man waved his phone. "Got the confirmation right here. Booked through Lakescape Rentals." Karen snatched the phone, her French manicured nails clicking against the screen as she scrolled through the booking details, her face drained of color. There it was, -42 Lakeview Terrace, complete with photos of the Hendersons' prized lake house, including the custom kitchen renovation she'd personally approved after 3 contentious HOA meetings. Someone had listed the Hendersons' property on a rental site, without approval forms, without proper HOA notification, without her knowledge. This was unacceptable. "I'm calling the police," Karen declared, already dialing. "You've been scammed, and I intend to find out by whom." The situation deteriorated rapidly after that. The renter, Jason, refused to leave, showing increasing agitation as he realized he might be out $3,000. Karen refused to back down, stationing herself on the front porch like a sentinel. By the time Officer Martinez arrived, they were engaged in a standoff worthy of a Western, with Karen reciting HOA bylaws as ammunition. "Ma'am, I understand your concern," Martinez said after reviewing both their documentation, but without the homeowners to verify. "Check the security cameras," Karen interrupted, pointing to the discreet device mounted under the eaves. "The Hendersons installed them last year after the Petersons' jet skis were stolen. I have the access codes." Martinez raised an eyebrow, but followed her to the side of the house where the system's hub was located in a weatherproof box. Karen punched in the code with practiced efficiency. What they saw next left even Karen, who prided herself on being unflappable, completely stunned. The footage showed a woman with a familiar blonde bob systematically photographing every room of the house 2 weeks earlier. A woman who moved with entitled confidence through the property. A woman who looked exactly like Donna Wells, Karen's next-door neighbor, secretary of the HOA, and her supposed best friend for the past 5 years. "That backstabbing witch," Karen whispered, her worldview crumbling as Officer Martinez stared at the screen in growing interest. Karen's perfectly ordered life had just been thrown into chaos, and if there was one thing Karen Whitfield couldn't abide, it was chaos. The emergency HOA meeting had been rescheduled 3 times in a single week, an unprecedented occurrence in Lakeview Terrace history. When it finally convened on a humid Thursday evening, attendance was standing room only. Karen arrived precisely on time, neither early to appear eager nor late to create drama. She nodded politely to neighbors who had been avoiding eye contact for days. Some nodded back, curiosity evident in their expressions. Donna was already seated at the president's table, looking immaculate but strained. The shadows under her eyes suggested sleepless nights. Beside her sat Gerald Thompson, clutching a folder labeled disciplinary action, with visibly trembling hands. As Karen took her seat in the front row, a hush fell over the room. "Before we begin," Donna announced, her voice lacking its usual melodic confidence, "I'd like to address some misunderstandings that have arisen." Karen maintained perfect posture, saying nothing. "Upon further review," Donna continued, "it appears the financial records presented at our last meeting contain certain inconsistencies. The board wishes to formally retract any allegations against Karen Whitfield regarding misappropriation of funds." A wave of whispers washed through the audience. Furthermore, Donna added, visibly struggling, "I am tendering my resignation as interim president, effective immediately." The whispers crescendo to exclamations of shock. Karen remained still, her expression neutral despite the victory thundering in her chest. Gerald cleared his throat nervously. "Given these developments, the vote of no confidence is withdrawn. Ms. Whitfield, if you're willing, the board invites you to resume your duties as president." All eyes turned to Karen. This was her moment of triumph, the vindication she'd fought for. Yet as she rose to speak, something unexpected happened. She hesitated. In the silence, she surveyed the room, not as territory to control, but as a community she'd lost touch with. She saw the Petersons, cited for their children's basketball hoop, the Garcias, fined for their vibrant garden gnomes, the Millers, who'd moved rather than endure more violations. "Thank you," Karen began, her voice softer than anyone had heard before. "But before I accept, I'd like to propose some changes to our bylaws." Confusion rippled through the room. Karen Whitfield, suggesting bylaw revisions? Impossible. First, a more balanced approval committee for home modifications. Second, reasonable grace periods for minor violations. And third, she paused, an ethics clause requiring transparency in all HOA decisions. For the next hour, Karen outlined a vision of Lakeview Terrace, where rules still mattered, but were applied with consistency and compassion, where the spirit of community took precedence over technical violations. As the meeting adjourned, neighbors approached her, cautiously at first, then with growing warmth. Even Tom Miller, in the process of unpacking his moving truck, promised to reconsider. Walking home, Karen found Donna waiting by her mailbox. "Quite the performance," Donna said quietly. "But we both know the real you." Karen considered this. "Perhaps you're right, but people can change." "Please," Donna scoffed. "You'll be back to measuring grass height by next week." "Maybe," Karen conceded. "Or maybe I've learned something about what matters. Either way, I'll be watching my security footage more carefully from now on." Donna's smile faltered. "This isn't over." "No," Karen agreed, unlocking her front door. "I suspect it's just beginning." That night, as Karen reviewed the HOA budget with fresh eyes, her doorbell rang. Outside stood Jason, the renter from the Henderson property, holding a bottle of wine. "Heard you got your job back," he said with an awkward smile. "Thought you might want to celebrate. And maybe explain HOA rules to a new homeowner. I just closed on the Bradley place." Karen hesitated, then opened her door wider. Some rules, she was discovering, were made to be reconsidered. Karen spent 3 days in self-imposed isolation, blinds drawn, phone silenced. She built her identity around being Lakeview Terrace's guardian of order and propriety. Now, she was its pariah. On day 4, her doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Officer Martinez. "Ms. Whitfield," he said when she reluctantly opened the door, "we've had some developments in the case." Karen let him in, acutely aware of her unwashed hair and the stack of takeout containers on her usually pristine counter. "The financial records Mrs. Wells provided?" Martinez began. "They've been altered. Our forensic accountant found discrepancies in the metadata." A flicker of hope ignited in Karen's chest. "Additionally," he continued, "we've traced the rental accounts. While they were created using your IP address, the actual transactions were processed through Mrs. Wells's devices." "She'd framed me," Karen whispered, the reality crashing down. "But why?" Martinez shifted uncomfortably. "That's where it gets complicated. Mrs. Wells's husband lost his job 6 months ago. They're underwater on their mortgage. And there's another factor. She was passed over for HOA president 3 years running." The pieces clicked into place. Donna's resentment, her financial desperation, the perfect storm. "What happens now?" Karen asked. "We're building a case, but honestly, these neighborhood disputes rarely lead to prosecution. The Hendersons don't want the publicity. They're just asking for restitution." Karen sat straighter. "So Donna gets away with it, after what she did to my reputation." Martinez looked at her thoughtfully. "The court of public opinion is sometimes more effective than legal action if you had evidence to change your neighbors' minds." That evening, Karen showered, applied her makeup with surgical precision, and dressed in her most authoritative pantsuit. Then she did something unprecedented. She walked next door without an appointment. Donna answered, champagne flute in hand. Her smile faltered when she saw Karen. If you're here to beg for mercy, save your breath. The board votes tomorrow on your permanent removal. Actually, Karen replied, her voice steady, I'm here to show you something. She held up her phone, displaying a video image of Donna's backyard, specifically the hot tub she'd installed last summer without permits or approval. What is this? Donna hissed. My security camera footage, the one pointing at your non-regulation fence. Karen allowed herself a small smile. Remember when you complained about my camera angle? I adjusted it. I just never said which direction. Color drained from Donna's face. You've been spying on me. I prefer documenting violations. I have 2 years' worth, including that pool house conversion you did for Airbnb rentals, the one using unlicensed contractors. Donna stepped closer, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You wouldn't dare. I've destroyed your reputation. Perhaps. But unlike you, I've always been transparent about enforcing the rules. Everyone expects it from me. Karen's smile widened. What they don't expect is the HOA president running illegal rentals while citing others for minor infractions. A tense silence stretched between them, broken only when Donna's husband called from inside, asking who was at the door. No one important, Donna answered, never breaking eye contact with Karen. Just someone leaving. Karen nodded, satisfaction warming her chest for the first time in days. Yes, I am leaving. But first, check your email. I sent you my terms for tomorrow's meeting. As she walked away, she heard Donna's champagne glass shatter on the porch floor. Karen Whitfield was back in control. The Lakeview Terrace Community Center buzzed with tension. Karen had arrived 30 minutes early, as was her custom, only to find most seats already filled. Neighbors who normally avoided HOA meetings had materialized, drawn by the promise of drama. In the front row sat Donna Wells, resplendent in a designer dress that Karen was certain hadn't been in her wardrobe a month ago. This emergency meeting is called to order, announced Gerald Thompson, the HOA vice president who'd somehow been convinced to preside. His nervous glance toward Karen suggested coercion. We're here to address serious allegations regarding. Excuse me, Karen interrupted, striding to the podium. Point of order. According to Bylaw 7.3, emergency meetings require 48 hours written notice. This meeting was called just 12 hours ago. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Karen allowed herself a small smile. No one knew the bylaws better than she did. Actually, Donna countered, rising gracefully. The digital notification was sent 3 days ago. Perhaps check your spam folder, Karen. A few snickers punctuated the silence. Karen felt heat rising in her cheeks. Furthermore, Donna continued, her voice honeyed with false concern, given that you're currently under investigation for misappropriation of HOA funds, Bylaw 12.6 suggests you should recuse yourself until the matter is resolved. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Karen gripped the edge of the nearest chair. That's preposterous. I've never. We have bank records, Karen. Donna pressed a button on her tablet, and the projector displayed a spreadsheet. $17,000 transferred from the HOA reserve fund to a private account last quarter. Coincidentally, right before your kitchen renovation. Karen's mind raced. The renovation she'd been saving for. The one she'd put off for 3 years, because the quotes were all over budget. This is slander, she managed, though her voice lacked its usual authority. Perhaps, said Gerald, looking uncomfortable, we should hear Karen's side. What followed was the most humiliating 30 minutes of Karen's life. As she tried to defend herself, neighbors she'd cited for unapproved bird feeders and non-regulation mailboxes watched with barely concealed satisfaction. When she mentioned the security footage showing Donna in the Henderson's house, Donna merely shrugged. Karen asked me to water the plants while she photographed the property for the HOA website. I have the text messages to prove it. By meeting's end, a vote had been taken. Karen Whitfield was suspended from her HOA presidency pending investigation. Donna Wells would serve as interim president. Driving home, tears blurring her vision, Karen nearly missed the moving truck parked outside the Miller's house. A family cited 3 times for unauthorized wind chimes. Tom Miller was loading boxes when Karen impulsively pulled over. "You're moving." In violation of the 60-day notification requirement, Tom stared at her, then let out a bitter laugh. "Still citing bylaws? Even after what Donna revealed tonight?" Karen frowned. "What do you mean?" "About the fake violations, the selective enforcement, the kickbacks from the approved contractors." Tom shook his head. "We all suspected, but those screenshots of your texts with her proved everything." Karen felt the ground shift beneath her. "What texts?" Tom's expression changed from contempt to confusion. "The ones where you two planned how to target homeowners who opposed your policies, force them to use overpriced contractors, then split the difference." He studied her stunned face. "You really didn't know she kept records?" It hit Karen then. She hadn't been the mastermind. She'd been the fall guy. Karen sat rigid in her immaculate living room, surrounded by the fruits of 15 years of careful curation. Pottery barn furniture arranged with mathematical precision, family photos in matching silver frames, and not a speck of dust in sight. Officer Martinez's notebook remained open on her spotless coffee table, his question still hanging in the air. "So you've never given Mrs. Wells access to the Henderson security codes?" "Absolutely not." Karen's jaw tightened. "Those codes are entrusted to me as property manager and HOA president. The bylaws explicitly forbid sharing them without written consent." Martinez nodded, jotting something down. "And you're certain the Hendersons didn't authorize these rentals?" "They're hiking through the Alps with spotty reception. But I can assure you, Richard Henderson would never permit strangers to use his grandmother's china." Karen gestured toward the phone she'd been frantically texting. "I've sent him emergency messages. He'll confirm everything when he's back in range." In the meantime, Martinez continued, "We've found 6 separate bookings for the property through 3 different rental sites, all created within the last month. The total exceeds $20,000. Karen's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide her shock. $20,000. The sum made her dizzy. "And all the accounts trace back to Mrs. Wells?" "The investigation is ongoing," Martinez replied diplomatically. "But there's sufficient evidence to question her." Karen stared out her bay window toward Donna's house, a colonial revival that Karen had always secretly thought was trying too hard. Now she noticed the new patio furniture, the freshly painted trim, the luxury SUV in the driveway. "She's been acting strange lately," Karen admitted. "Missed 2 HOA meetings, which isn't like her. And last week, she voted against my proposal to ban wind chimes as noise pollution. Donna has always supported my noise ordinances." Martinez's expression remained neutral, but Karen caught the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. She was familiar with that look. People often misunderstood her dedication to community standards. Later that afternoon, Karen watched from behind her curtains as Martinez approached Donna's house. The conversation was brief. Donna's animated gestures gave way to stiff formality. When Martinez left, Donna remained on her porch, staring directly at Karen's window with an expression that chilled her to the bone. That night, Karen's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You should have minded your own business for once." The following morning, Karen discovered someone had placed a yard sign on her immaculate lawn. A garish, neon monstrosity advertising, "Karen's control issues ain't online no US. Meetings daily." By the time she yanked it out, 3 neighbors had already taken photos. Worse, when she arrived for her weekly inspection of the Hendersons' property, she found the lockbox missing and a note taped to the door. "The real thief isn't who you think." Karen's hand trembled as she removed the note. For the first time in her life, she felt uncertain, off balance. This wasn't just about rental fraud anymore. This was personal. As she turned to leave, her phone pinged with an email notification. The subject line made her blood run cold. "Emergency HOA meeting called. Vote of no confidence for current president." The signature block listed Donna Wells as acting president. War had been declared.